In today's video I'm going to share with you my process for making a mullein salve from scratch, so do get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. So today I'm going to be sharing with you a mullein balm that I created from scratch. So I'm really excited about today's video because it's something that I'm really passionate about and that I've been working on for a while in my practice. If you have watched any of my videos before or you follow me on Instagram, you may know that I do like to make oils from scratch, and I've been doing that for years. I grew up with a mother who was very much into essential oils, and she took courses, read books, and she had a lot of essential oils and worked with aromatherapy a lot. So I grew up with knowledge around essential oils. I first started researching and practicing witchcraft when I was 11, and so I was fairly young at the time, and it took time to, you know, become aware of what I could use in my practice. But I loved working with essential oils, and so I've always had a pretty good collection, which has only grown as an adult. But I've always worked with essential oils, and I've always crafted my own oils using sweet almond oil specifically. In more recent years I have used things like jojoba oil and coconut oil as well. Some of my favourite oils to make are things like astral oils, and I make an oil in dedication to the Morrigan, which has changed recipes over the years. And most recently on my channel I shared a video for an oil I made for the goddess Brigitte, which I've made for a few years now at Imolc. I absolutely love the process of making oils using herbs and essential oils and imbuing my intention, and it's just something that I find so nourishing. I also use oils from other makers and witches as well. I absolutely love Joey Morris at Starry-Eyed Supplies for her incenses and oils, and I love Starchild as well for their massage oils, and I often use those in a magical way as well. So I do use other oils, but I just absolutely love the process of making my own. But one thing I've been really intrigued to do for a long time is to make my own balms, because it's something that I hadn't ever experienced. It's something that I had never done before. The balm or salve that I wanted to make the most, and I still do, is a flying ointment, and I have yet still to make a flying ointment. I have made a flying oil in the past. I found that to be a really beautiful oil, but I wanted to be able to craft a balm to use as well, and that is still something that I want to be able to do. So the ingredients in that flying oil weren't toxic in any way. The most hallucinogenic of the herbs used was mugwort, and that is a herb that I work with a lot in my practice. I do like to smoke mugwort as well, which I would definitely say, you know, I'm fine to do that, but that is something that if you want to do that, you need to check that you are okay to do that, because it does have certain health implications, and you just need to make sure that is something that's going to be okay for you. I also wouldn't recommend it if you are pregnant, etc., things like that. So just do your own research, because that is something that's really important before you like ingest any kind of herbs. But that is something that I do, and I really do like that experience for divination and for astral travel and for flying and journey work, etc. I tend to dream very vividly after smoking mugwort and using mugwort in incenses. It's something I absolutely love to use. So making a flying ointment is something I really do want to do. Balm, salve, ointment, I'm using those three terms interchangeably, just so you're aware. But the first balm I decided to make was a mullein balm, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. It is the first balm I've ever crafted. I'm going to share with you some information about how I have done that today. So the reason I decided to start with a mullein salve is because mullein is a herb that I've worked with a lot in the past, and it's a herb that I have previously received in a herbal packet. It's not a herb that I had actually found before, and it is a plant spirit that I was hoping to connect with for a very long time, setting intentions to find a mullein plant. And it was in December of last year, and I was searching our local woodland for a Yule log for celebrating the winter solstice, and I came across mullein, and I knew it was mullein the moment I saw it, but I do use plant identifier apps as well for safety, so I confirmed it with my app and I was correct. The moment I saw it, I knew it was mullein though, and I was drawn to it, and it was just so beautiful. And I've heard herbalists and witches and magical practitioners say these kinds of things in the past, that the plant spirit or the plant that you need at that moment will connect to you, and it was a really beautiful experience. And it was very strange actually, because a couple of days after I had foraged the plant, I only took a few leaves because it was only one plant, so I just took a few leaves, not a lot at all compared to what was there. I dried them just a couple of days after I had that plant in my life. My daughter had an earache, And I knew, I had it in my head just sort of, oh, the mullein, I know I can use the mullein for that. And I was like, where do I know that from? I confirmed it in a couple of my books as well as online, and I was aware that that had obviously stuck in my head and that I was able to use it for, you know, healing skin as well as sort of calming properties and peace inducing, really great for anxiety and things like that. And then my husband got bit by a spider in the bed a couple of nights after that, and he had terrible earache because the spider literally bit him on the ear. And I, again, really wished I'd had this mullein salve balm ointment at the time so that I could help my daughter and my hubby with the pain that they were feeling. So that kind of made me think, okay, I really do want to do this now. I decided to try to make a traditional, as far as possible traditional blend. I will say I'm not a herbalist. It's something I would like to train in at some point down the line, and it's something I'm just learning myself. I am aware that perhaps a long infusion, which tends to be what I do with my oils, because they're more for magical practice though, I don't tend to wait to leave them, but I do allow the plant matter to just stay in the oil. I keep the plant matter in the oil, and it's all dry, so nothing ever gets moldy or anything, and I use the oil up before it would go bad anyway. So I tend to just leave the plant matter in the oil, so it's always infusing. So even though I might start using it the next day or a couple of days, it just means it intensifies and the strength of the oil just really comes together. So you can do a long infusion if you are making an oil for a healing reason, more in a medicinal kind of way. That can be really valuable. But if you want to do the short method, which I have actually not done until this point, you can use a double boiler, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. Several other witches and herbalists do this on YouTube. There are so many videos and how-tos, how to create an oil this way using the fast infusion, and it's actually lovely. I really enjoyed it. So essentially you simply have a double boiler. So I had a copper pot, bring your water up to the boil and then bring it back down to the temperature that you want to keep it at. So essentially for a fast infusion you want to have your plant matter completely dried and ready to use. I would wash my plant matter, so I washed the mullein when it was fresh and I just allowed it to air dry naturally, moved it around. You can do this on a dehydrator, or you can use an oven at a really low temperature. I just air dried mine and they were absolutely fine. So once they were absolutely ready to use, I did set them onto my altar to just imbue them with some intention and allow the energy to kind of build until I was ready to make the oil. Then the oil that I chose to use was a sweet almond oil, and I decided to opt for the fast infusion method. So the way you want to do that is using a double boiler. So I had a copper pot and I used an old recycled jam jar. I used a thermometer to keep the temperature at 40 degrees centigrade so that the plant matter would just infuse into the oil. I allowed that to infuse for 6 hours. So it's quite quick but also takes its time, and it was a really beautiful process because I was able to imbue lots of intention into it as the plant matter was mixing with the oil. So in terms of the volume, I only had about 6 grams I think worth of mullein, so I topped that up to around about 125 mils of oil, sweet almond oil. And there is a really good method on how to create a medicinal oil in this book here, which is Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs, which I would highly recommend. So it's a very simple method here, the double boiler method, and this goes into the temperature that you need, so between 95 and 110 Fahrenheit. I had mine about 40 degrees centigrade. So I chopped up my mullein and included them in the oil with the double boiler. It says here that you don't want your herbs to be burnt, so that's really important that you don't overheat. It can strip the herbs of their kind of medicinal properties. So it says cover the herbs with an inch or two of high quality cooking oil, and Rosemary Gladstar recommends olive oil, and I would absolutely go for olive oil if I hadn't used sweet almond oil. That's just because I'm really used to using sweet almond oil with essential oils, and I really enjoy using that. I think if you were going to just make a facial oil or something, you could use something like jojoba oil. That would be a really nice alternative. But olive oil definitely for a magical oil or for making a salve would be perfect. Simmer gently for 30 to 60 minutes, so not even up to 6 hours. Ideally an hour or two, but 6 hours was what I found when I was doing some research. So that's how long I infused mine, and I felt like it was just the perfect amount of time. Because I only had 6 grams worth of mullein, which was very light, and obviously different herbs can be different weights, but with the volume, because I used the volume method, so filling it up, it was about 125 mils of oil on top. And then 6 hours with the fast method. So then when the oil has infused, you can remove it from the heat, cover it and allow it to cool. I just left mine overnight to cool, continued infusing. And then the next day I strained it out using a muslin cloth, and then I got to work with the actual salve. So for this I was using beeswax. I do know that you can create salves using coconut oil, because obviously coconut oil will solidify, and that means as well that you don't get that thick kind of coating feel that you might get with the beeswax, which some people may prefer, so if they'd rather not use beeswax. I opted to use beeswax because it's something I'd never done before and I wanted to try it. I do actually use coconut oil quite a lot in my practice personally, on my skin and on my body, and it's something that I love. Coconut oil is fantastic, so I would definitely try coconut salve in the future. Also, if you wanted to just make an oil, you can use fractionated coconut oil, which doesn't solidify, so that is in a bottle. So this is where I did make a slight error in judgment, and that was because I actually didn't look at this again to check the amounts of beeswax I would need, and this would have been a lot better because it says for each cup of finished herbal oil add 1/4 cup of beeswax. So essentially it's 1 part beeswax to 4 parts oil, which would have made for a much firmer balm in my case. So the way it turned out was that the salves I have, I've used 2 of them up now since I made them, and the rest of them are living in the fridge to elongate their shelf life. However, once they're out of the fridge, they do turn into quite a thick oil again. They don't remain as a balm, and that has been frustrating for me, and that is because I did not use enough beeswax. It's because I found a tutorial on YouTube and I used the amount of beeswax that they suggested, which was far too little. So I used only 4 grams of beeswax for 125 mils of oil, and it was not enough. So next time I do this, I'll be using 4 parts of oil to 1 part beeswax. So for 125 mils, I'd use 25 grams of beeswax, and that would have been a lot better. But you live it and learn it. This was my first time making it, and you know what? The salves are still really beautiful. They're just not quite salves. They're more like oil in a pot. So I'm sharing this with you with complete transparency. The salve has been a complete success in the fact that it's been healing and it has been anxiety reducing and really great for pain relief. Actually, I do get neck and shoulder pain. I don't have a chronic pain issue or anything like that, and obviously because I'm not a doctor, I cannot say that this does that, but I did feel a pain relief for me when I used it. And again, as I said, like, I don't have a chronic back issue or anything like that is a medical issue. It's just aches and pains really from, you know, moving around and being a mum and being busy and having, you know, a busy life. That's all it is. So I would absolutely say that, you know, this is not a solution to medical problems, and if you do have back pains or pains anywhere else in your body, this is not like a solution for that. What I would say is that the properties in the mullein helps to kind of relax the muscles from what I've read and what I have experienced personally. But again, as I said, it's not a replacement for medicine, and it is a complementary treatment if it is something that is healthy for you to be taking. So I have used this on cuts and bruises on myself, and again, as I said, like on my neck where I do get sort of muscle pain and things. I went to a dance school when I was younger, and I had physiotherapy a lot because after dance classes I'd have like aches and pains, and it's great for that kind of thing if you use the gym or you work out a lot and you get those kinds of aches and pains that are not more serious long-term medical issues. I think that this could be something that would help. Also, as I said, cuts and scrapes, they healed up so quickly and beautifully, and I used it as a relaxation tool as well. So much as I would use a flying ointment, I've used it before going into meditation and for anxiety relief. Put it on my pulse points, put some on my forehead, on my crown, on my throat, on my heart, and just used it in a very magical and spiritual way for those kinds of things, as well as, you know, supporting mindfulness and mental health. So, and it has been a beautiful tool for me, and I've absolutely loved it. So getting back to the process of making the actual salve, even though I didn't include enough beeswax, the way that works is that you want to just add your beeswax into the oil, back into the double boiler. So when you strain out your oil, you'll probably strain it into a new jar or into a jug and then put it back into the original jar, however it works for you, and then add in the beeswax, which I chopped up, or you can get beeswax flakes, it depends on what form it's in. You add the correct amount for your oil and allow that again to simmer, again 40 degrees in the double boiler, and use a thermometer to make sure the temperature doesn't go above, because you don't want, again, to overheat the oil. And then once the beeswax is all melted, stir periodically, of course, as you did with the oil. Remove it from the heat, and once it's off the heat, you can add some essential oils. So for this, I decided to do half the batch without any essential oils because I wanted wanted to experience what the plant medicine would be like just on its own, just the mullein, pure unadulterated mullein product. And I found that they both have the same effect in terms of like healing any aches and pains and healing any cuts or bruises. However, the half of the oil that I used, that I included some essential oils, which was literally just 2 drops. So for about 62 millilitres of the oil that I included in essential oil, it was some Clary Sage, and I included just 2 drops in 62 mils. So I could take that up a bit more because I tend to work on around 15 drops of essential oils to about 100 mils. So I could, you know, increase that, and I think next time I will, because I really loved the fragrance of the Clary Sage, and I found that whilst they both had the same kind of healing properties with the mullein, the plant spirit, the plant medicine within, I found that the scent of the Clary Sage was so relaxing and so comforting and just really peace-inducing and really like calming and just beautiful for the senses. It was stunning, and it was very, very mild with just the 2 drops for the 62 mils, which of course was spread out amongst a number of these. I think I had about 9 or 10 of these in the end that were filled. These are just tiny little pots that I picked up from Amazon and that I will reuse. So just wash and reuse after I've finished using all the oils. I really found that I enjoyed having the scent. So I think that's nice because I was able to understand how the plant medicine would be effective just on its own, but then also the magical potency and the sensory enhancement that you would get from adding essential oils to the mix. And an essential oil like Clary Sage is perfect for that. So if you do want to add essential oils, you only want to add them to your oil with the melted beeswax after it's removed from the heat and before it solidifies. So you want to add your essential oils at that point. As I said, I added 2 drops to 62 milliliters, and I could take that up a little bit, which I will add a few more drops maybe next time. Then also I added some vitamin E oil, which helps to stabilize the mixture so that it keeps for a little bit longer and it just has a very, very smooth quality on the skin. So then once you've added your essential oils, if you choose to, and the vitamin E oil, you can just decant into your pots. And that, again, I realized I need to improve my pouring technique. Then after that, you just allow them to rest and to solidify, which they did solidify mostly, but they were still, as I said, a little bit wobbly. And once they were in the fridge, they were really cool and quite solid. But then out of the fridge, they do go more liquidy again because, as I said, not included enough beeswax. So I used a pen to just jot down on each one the date and what was in each one, so I knew which ones were the pure mullein oil and which ones had the inclusion of the essential oil of the Clary Sage. I also included the date as well. My pen wasn't the best pen, and so I've since invested in a pen that will write on metal so that next time the pen doesn't come off, because as you can see, this has nothing written on it anymore. This is the only one I'm using, and I know that this one is the mullein oil, the plain mullein oil. So when I first started using them, I decided to use one with the Clary Sage included in it at certain points and the simple mullein salve at other points. So I've had them both on the go, and literally this is pretty much finished now. But as you can see, the pen has rubbed off. So it's really, really important just to have a pen that you can jot that down on, or have a label or something that you can do that. But I know that this is the plain mullein oil, and I can tell the difference as well because there's not the scent. So I had my hubby use it as well, and he also agreed that it helped to alleviate kind of muscle pain, which is lovely. And I used some on his back because it was still more oily. It was actually a really, really nice texture for massage, and he loved that. And so it's been a really, really beautiful product, and I'm really, really pleased with it. And I've got a few more to go through. I'm probably going to give a couple to some friends if they are interested in trying it out for me and reporting back with, you know, all the caveats of what's in it and what it can do, and obviously that it's a little bit runny, so just be careful not to spill it, and maybe don't put it in your purse. But yeah, I've been really, really excited to try this, and I'm really glad that I have. I'm also really glad that I decided to use the mullein that I had foraged and found myself and dried myself, and it felt like a really, really lovely, beautiful process, and I was able to imbue my intention into the salve at every single stage, which I absolutely loved. And you know, if I was to make a flying ointment, which I am planning to do next, I'm obviously going to be including more beeswax, so it is solid, and I will be using a mixture of different herbs, including mugwort, and I will include some Clary Sage as well, which is beautiful, probably some wormwood, and a couple of other herbs as well. I'm not entirely sure exactly, but we will see. And I'm going to be comparing a lot of different recipes. Just to be clear, I won't be using any toxic plants or herbs in any flying oil and ointment that I make. I recently read The Poison Path Herbal by Coby Michael, which I absolutely loved, and this was just fantastic for learning about nightshades, specifically datura, henbane, mandrake, etc., and the mythology around the plants, the planetary associations, the ways in which these plants were used historically. So this is the Poison Path Herbal, Baneful Herbs, Medicinal Nightshades and Ritual Entheogens, and I'm absolutely intrigued by this, but at this point I will not be using any of those herbs in my practice. Interestingly enough though, I did discover when we moved into our new home that there is some black nightshade in the garden, and it is a new build, and it was previously, you know, fields, so there are some wild plants around, and it's very, very interesting because there is a black nightshade at the back and it's right next to a wild lettuce as well, and both of these plants are included in this book, so it was fantastic to learn about them. And there is something interesting here. The wild lettuce is relative of the dandelion. Prickly lettuce, vehicle for visionary travel and prophetic dreams. It has a milky extract, commonly called opium lettuce. Sleep inducing, related to Hecate or Nyx. Can be used for nocturnal workings, etc. Wild lettuce is safer to use than some of the more toxic plants of the nightshade family, and I found it really, really interesting that the two are right next to each other. Now, I actually did work with the plant spirit without touching it because I knew it was a wild lettuce, I knew what it was, but I did work a little bit with the black nightshade again without touching it, just connecting to the energy of the plant, and at the same time I did spend some time with the wild lettuce, and I found the wild lettuce to have a character to it that was even more aggressive seemingly than the black nightshade, which I found really interesting. So what I've written here was that the energy that I picked up from this plant, and obviously this is unverified personal gnosis, this isn't in this book, this is what I noted down in the margins of this book after having spent time with this plant spirit, that it seems very irregular, unpredictable, its energy felt really very prickly, erratic and quite chaotic, and when I said aggressive, really maybe what I mean is like more malevolent. It had quite a severe sort of presence, and I can't think of the right word that I want to use, but it sort of seemed like a very chaotic energy that I did not want to go into, but it did have that sort of soporific nature as well, in a way almost like it would lure you in, just like the nightshade, the deadly nightshade. So really, really interesting. As a dream-inducing and journeying plant, wild lettuce is safer to use than some of the more toxic plants of the nightshade family. It does say here wild lettuce does contain trace amounts of hyoscyamine, which is an alkaloid found in henbane. So again, the book goes into henbane in itself, just something, you know, I found interesting to explore. In terms of the black nightshade is not as poisonous as deadly nightshade. It's often confused with belladonna or the deadly nightshade. The main difference being that the deadly nightshade berries grow singularly, whereas the black nightshade, they grow in clusters. So the black nightshade is Solum nigrum, and it's native to Eurasia. The white flowers are slightly larger than other varieties, and the plant has been used in flying ointment recipes. So it is kind of perfect, and here you can see there's a sigil for the plant there. It's not something I want to dabble with. So it says here that unripe green berries are toxic. They turn black when they are ripe, and then they are safe to eat in small amounts. And that's something I probably won't be trying either anytime soon. My husband and I have decided to remove the plant, especially as we move into spring, because we have 2 small children. Even though it says that the plant is not as toxic, it does say that the green berries are toxic here. Interestingly as well, Coby Michael does refer to Harold Roth's book, describing the plants as Saturnian watery plants in a unique way, calling them toad plants. Very, very interesting, and I would also highly recommend Harold Roth's book, The Witching Herbs, which is in the other room at the moment. I read that last year and absolutely fantastic, and goes into more detail around how to grow and cultivate and raise these plants from seedlings, and then how to connect to their plant spirits. It focuses on 13 of the witching herbs, belladonna being one of them, and that book obviously does discuss black nightshade as well. So it's just really, really interesting that those plants are in the garden, and I have spent some time with them, been able to connect to them, and that's really what I'm getting at here in a really, really rambly way. The wild lettuce had a more erratic and malevolent presence for me than the black nightshade did, but I will be getting rid of both of them because I have 2 small children and it's not something I really want to risk, and it's definitely something I wouldn't suggest anyone else does either. I mean, I think reading this book has been so helpful, and you know, learning about these things doesn't necessarily mean I want to put any of them into practice, at least not yet. Coby has studied for years and years and years to be able to use these plants in his practice, and you know, he very much advocates that people exercise caution when, you know, delving into this. So at the front of the book it says, danger, toxic. Many of the plants discussed within this book are poisonous. If used improperly, they can cause illness and even death. It is important when working with baneful herbs that you take precautions such as wearing gloves, protective eye covering, using tools designed for poisonous plants, clearly labelling any dangerous formulas to protect yourself and others. So I would just say that as a disclaimer, that just because I'm referencing this book does not mean that I would endorse everything that is in this book or try everything in this book or use anything in this book necessarily. There is a lot of fantastic information here though, and for learning about these plants and learning how to deal with them, and for me making that decision about needing to remove those plants from my garden for my children and our home, it's something that is really, really important. And to do that, I know we need a specific product, and I know we will be needing, you know, eye coverings and gloves to do that. Even though we're not dealing with a belladonna, still I'm taking all precautions, and so just want to make that really, really clear as well, because I've discussed flying ointments in this. You know, working with baneful or toxic herbs is not something I'm taking lightly, and working with any herb as well. You know, if you're ingesting any herb, foraging for any herb, just as I said with the mullein, I was really, really careful, made sure I knew exactly what it was before I even touched it or went near it. That's really, really important as well. So please do your research, do your own research. Don't take anything I've said as gospel, you know, and experiment for yourself. You know, this is a channel where I want to share what I'm doing in my practice, what I'm learning, as well as, you know, what I love and what I've learned over the years and what I am doing and how I'm practicing. And so I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it, and I've shared with you absolutely, you know, the truth about how my salves, as beautiful and as healing and as magical as they are, because they completely are potent and beautiful, they didn't solidify properly because I didn't use enough beeswax. So I hope this serves to help you on your journey. If you want to make a salve yourself, I would highly recommend this book for learning how to make oils and salves. There are recipes online as well, and I've given you the correct amounts and the incorrect amounts, so you know not to use just 4 grams of beeswax to 125 mils of oil. You know that you want to use 1 part beeswax to 4 parts, because it's in this book and I made the mistake myself, so I know that next time I'll be doing that. So hopefully you've got some information here to go away and perhaps make your own salve. There are some recommendations for making salves in this book as well, different herbs that you can use. One I've really enjoyed working with so far. And if you're interested in learning about toxic plants and baneful plants and herbs, then this is a great book as well. I would like to definitely do a video on HERBCRAFT and the best sort of green witch books, because I now have quite a lot, and by no means all of them that I would want and that are on my list. I would love to do a video on that as well in the future. If you're interested in sort of green witchery books, or specifically, you know, herb, plant, magic books, then yeah, do let me know if you would like that kind of video. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped to serve if you are planning to make an oil or a balm, a salve of your own. Also, if you would like to check out the video I created for in-milk, Bridget, I will leave that in the cards, as well as my Morrigan oil. These give you an idea of some of the oils that I've made. I haven't made videos for any of the other oils I've made in the past, so these are sort of specific deity oils and for the Sabbats, but definitely oils are a thing I love, so I will be sharing more and more oils on my channel, as well as other magical and witchcraft topics and tarot, of course. So if you did enjoy the video, if it helped to serve, please do click the like button, give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone who you know would enjoy it too, who's interested in green witchery, herbs, plants, herbalism, or witchcraft practices and magic in general. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below if you have anything to share, if you've made oils or salves or balms or ointments in the past. I'd love to hear your experiences, any particular plants that you like making oils with, or any essential oils you love experimenting with. What do you love about this process, etc. Any thoughts or ideas, please do share them below. That would be great to hear from you. If you would like to support me in other ways, I have an Instagram and I also have a TikTok, which I will leave linked on screen and in the description box below, so you can click over and follow me on those channels. I also have a Buy Me a Coffee page if you would like to donate a little bit to Buy Me a Coffee to show your appreciation for what I share here. Obviously that's not necessary. You being here, liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting is so lovely and so appreciated. I'm absolutely loving being part of YouTube and building a little community that is safe, and yeah, I want everyone to feel safe in the comments as well, so that's really important to me. And if you're one of the people who's been watching and enjoying my channel but you've not yet subscribed, please do subscribe below, and while you subscribe don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube will let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. So witchcraft, magic, spirituality and tarot content. And with all that said, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you stay well and safe and look after yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.